Welcome to the LFG Pats Pod with your hosts, Joe and Mike. Let's go!
All right, welcome into the LFG Pats Pod. This is the fourth episode. We'll call it the Adam Vinatieri episode. So why don't we jump into a few things first, then we'll get into the agenda. So one of the things that we're working on, Mike and I have been talking to a lot of different podcasts out there. We're working with the Foxborough Fellas. So next Wednesday, the 14th at 7 p.m. EST, we'll be on breaking down the AFC East. So today is a little bit of a teaser to that. But next Wednesday, you'll get a better look at how do we feel, how do they feel. It's going to be great.
Shout out Foxborough Fellas.
Foxborough Fellas.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it a lot.
So that's a collaboration we're working on. Another one that we're in the talks with is Pat's Planet. So a lot of great work they do over there. We're talking about, kind of an off-season. What do we want to do with them? More to come on that. We're also looking at a Pat's social media day. So as far as training camp, obviously in July that'll kick off. But we want to get all the social media people, podcasts, in general, just, all the different people that support the Patriots.
Little collab.
Yeah. So a lot of things we're working on. For this episode, there's one UDFA that we missed. I won't spoil it, but one UDFA that we missed that we want to just bring up, and Mike will tell us a little bit about them, but slipped through the cracks last week. And then we'll get into the AFC East breakdown. So we're going to break down free agency. We're going to break down the draft. We're going to talk about strengths and weaknesses of each team. And then obviously we're going to come up with a prediction of what we feel, how we feel will fare against them.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So why don't we get into Jack Conley?
So Jack Conley, spoiler alert, he said he wasn't going to spoil it, and then he spoiled it.
I spoiled it. Yeah.
We just, in the past week, going over, we talked a lot about the UDFAs. We had Chisholm, Larson, we're very high on those guys. But what we didn't realize was Jack Conley, because they gave him a guarantee of $110,000, which is almost as much as what Larson had.
Right.
So that means that there was a bidding war for him too, and we came out on top, and that they actually really wanted the player. And I think it's a great fit. Jack Conley, if you're familiar with local college sports, BC guy, he played every position along that line except for center, I believe. So he's a utility guy. He's huge. He's 6'7", 325.
Yeah.
So he's a big guy. He's a people mover, especially on the inside. So we actually have pretty high hopes with him to come in. I would like to see him compete at the left guard position.
The most wide open position on our line. Yeah.
So we have a lot of guys in the mix for that particular position. I think this guy could match up with almost any of them.
And these UDFAs are interesting because you give these guys over $100,000. And what you're basically saying is you're at the very worst a practice squad guy, and it even gets more interesting with someone like Lane Larson. Now he's up to $200,000, which means other teams have bid on him. So if you put him on the practice squad, now you have to compete with other teams because now they can sign him off your practice squad. So
Absolutely.
It's tough. I mean, you give these guys this money, and now you have to figure out how are we going to make this work.
The thing that happens with these guys, they give them a bunch of money guaranteed to come in, and if they are cut, then they already have the guaranteed money, and they'll just re-sign on a practice squad contract, which is much less than an actual roster contract. But these guys still get their bonus money, and in the grand scheme of things, that is peanuts to the franchise.
Of course.
$100,000 is marginal on their books, so it's a good investment to bring guys in that you feel are going to actually help. We think the UDFA class that we had is not as strong as the draft, but we put together a good collection of talent there, and some guys might actually make the roster, as we talked about last week, and we'll continue to talk about it. But Jack Conley, he's a guy that I'm going to be keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a great addition. All right, why don't we get into the AFC East breakdown? So we've been called the AFC least. We've been called a lot of different things over the years of the the Brady years, where it was just basically mark these off as 6 wins, or and that's just how it went, right? And
yeah, it's not that way anymore.
It's not quite that way anymore. Clearly, there's some favorites, and there's some teams that we'll get into. Did they get better? Did they get worse? But where do we want to start, Mike?
I would like personally to start with the Bills.
All right, let's start with the Bills. Let's start with the big dog in the division.
I know we were going to do it the opposite way.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I like it.
But the reason why I want to start with the Bills is because they're obviously the king of the castle there.
Yes,
they
sure.
We owned the AFC East for 20 years, and now they have the keys to the kingdom. So they're who everybody's chasing and who we're trying to knock off. And we have maybe unrealistic high expectations for our team. But we think after all the moves that we made that we might actually be able to compete with these people, and we haven't been able to do that in the past. Exactly. So we're pretty excited about it. But the Bills, when we're talking about like some of the guys they added, some guys they lost, their draft, I mean, they retained some guys, they re-signed Matt Milano, Greg Russo, those type of guys. They gave
the mainstays.
Yeah,
yep.
They gave their corner Christian Benford big money. They added Joey Bosa, which I wouldn't have minded getting him, just for a situational pass rusher. Yep. I know he's injury prone, but I think he's a great fit for their defense. They signed Josh Palmer, who's going to be another good fit. He's going to get right into the mix with all those other guys that they have there. And one thing that Joe points out is that Josh Allen is like a point guard. He distributes to everybody. He doesn't have like any one favorite, well, Diggs, but he's not there anymore. But the current iteration, he doesn't have that number one guy to go to, so he just tries to dink and dunk to all the other guys. So Josh Palmer will be in that mix. They re-signed Tre'Davious White, who was a baller with them the first time, but then he left and his career derailed, so now he's trying to get himself back on track. They lost Kyer Elam, who was a pretty good corner for them. They lost Matt Collins, who we ended up re-signing. I think that's marginal.
Right.
Them losing him and us gaining him, I don't know how much to be gleaned from that. But they had a good draft. They had Maxwell Hairston, who they got in the first round, who I think is a stud. He posted excellent numbers at the combine. Wasn't he like a 4? What was his 40? Was it 4.29 or?
It was very low.
It was right in that area right there. So that guy I think is an immediate starter. They got T.J. Sanders as a DT. He's probably going to be an immediate rotational guy. Edge, Landon Jackson, who's a guy that I liked. I had my eye on him, but they ended up taking him a little higher than I would have preferred. And then they took this player, Deion Walker, who's a DT from Kentucky in the 4th round. And he's huge. This guy's like 6'6", 345, something like that. Yeah. So he's a people mover on the inside. So they basically replenished what they lost. They beefed up on their defense. The defense was already pretty sound, but I think that they had overall a pretty good offseason, and they're kind of like maintaining their par for the course right now. I don't think they got appreciably better, but they didn't get worse either,
Right.
So I think they did good. As far as how I would grade their draft, I always say draft their grade.
It's on the tip of the tongue.
It's one of those Freudian things, but you grade the draft, I give them a solid B right down the middle, because I think the first 4 guys can contribute right away. The rest of the later guys, they're all flyers on, so I don't know if they're going to actually make the team or not. But overall, in general, I like what the Bills did. That kind of makes me a little bit angry because
it's tough, right? Because they're clearly saying on offense that we feel good with what we got, and we hearken this to the Tom Brady days where we had Jabbar Gaffney, we had these guys that were just not quite household names, but they got the job done. When we looked at their offense last year, and this is no shock to anybody, Josh Allen spreads the ball around, but also these guys get yards after the catch. Every guy in that offense gets 7 to 9 yards after the catch, and it's because it's scheming around Josh Allen, right? It's very tough to defend Josh Allen with his legs. Also, the receivers through the air once they get the ball, right? You don't know who's going to get the ball. James Cook was, had 9 yards after the catch.
Yeah, he was
18 touchdowns,
he was
right?
a stud last year, but he wants to get paid like it, too.
Which is, this day and age, we know what happens there, right? Typically, they move on and they draft young.
I would.
Oh, this team is clearly hanging their hat on their pass production, on Josh Allen, on their coaching, right? Their defense, they lost some players, but you bring in someone, like a Joey Bosa, and you expect him to hopefully get, a few sacks. He's a rotational player now. He's not an every down player, but you have Russo, you have, Landon Jackson, and you have these guys now, and they, drafted some D tackles pretty high as well. They want to stop the run, they want to defend the pass, and they want to get after the quarterback. And so that everything that they've done through the offseason and through the draft says exactly that. And so they're taking a strength, and they're, are they improving? We'll see, right? We don't know, depending on these players, on, Joey Bosa, on the players they drafted. But overall, they're the top dog, right? If
for sure.
If you want to, You want to be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
Yeah, they're giving Josh Allen the Tom Brady treatment, like you said, circa 2011, where just like a bunch of average receivers. You don't have to have any superstar because the guy will just distribute the ball to whoever's open. And they have a lot of broken plays, so they got players in there that know how to like extend the play and get open in space. That's his forte. So.
And, Dalton Kincaid, I think it's, year 3 for him now?
Yeah.
So Dalton Kincaid was, highly touted out of college.
But you don't think he's shown a lot, huh?
I feel like it's tough. Tight end's a tough position. Like the Brock Bowers of the world.
That's an outlier.
It's an outlier, right? You don't come into the NFL and just light it on fire as a tight end. There's so many different, you're learning basically a lineman position to an extent, depending on your profile.
Yeah, it's 2 jobs. It's blocking and running routes.
You're learning a lot of things, and to put that all together is tough. Now, Kincaid is, let's face it, he's a big slot, right? He's not your traditional tight end.
He's not much of an inline guy.
No, he's not like a Jason Witten, right? So I always hate comparing people to Aaron Hernandez. Is he your Aaron Hernandez type?
I mean, the player did have a skill set,
It's
so
true. It's just everything else that you don't want to compare.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope on that one there.
But I think Mike and I are very clear on this. They're run offense between Josh Allen and James Cook is the best, right?
It is. It's the cream of the crop in our division. I'll tell you that much.
It's the cream of the crop in the AFC East. And then the receivers, is it a big deal? Is it not? I don't think so, but that could rear its ugly head too. With, Gonzalez, with Carlton Davis, with our secondary additions, with, let's face it, our maybe new pass rush, right?
Oh, it's going to be spicy.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, Mike, we want to get into the records, and what do we think?
I mean, we can, we'll be able to D those guys up, but as far as, what you think, how our record will be against the Bills this year.
Yeah, it's a spicy one.
Look, I mean, they are still the cream of the crop. We're chasing them. There's, no doubt about that. And with my perpetual rose-colored glasses, I'm going to say 1-1. I think we can steal one off of this team. Now next week, another teaser. Next week, when the schedule comes out, the full NFL schedule, we'll have it week by week on where they're playing, because it's important when we're playing the Bills. Early in the season, we're playing them week 18 at the end of the season
in Buffalo.
Exactly. When they're going to be insanely on fire and ready to go because they're going to the playoffs and they're going to want to kill us.
That's a bucket list item, Mike. I want to get to.
Oh man.
I want to get to Buffalo for a game. Oh,
I'm gonna have to go incognito on that.
We're gonna have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to dress up in old Bills uniforms and stuff.
Bills fans love their team. They're great fans. They're absolutely great fans.
Amazing fans.
And they really support their team. But no, I think on paper right now we're better than the other 2 teams. I'm going to bury the lead. I'm just to say it right out.
Yeah.
And this is the team that we're chasing right now.
Yep.
So I think if we can steal one, whatever the circumstance may be, and I'll have more clarity on that when I see how the schedule falls. But I don't think it's not unrealistic for me to think that.
No, I think you're right. I think. It's 2-0 is lofty at best, and 1-1 feels like, all right, we
just steal
one.
We're
showing that we belong in the conversation to be, AFC East contenders, and then beyond that, wild card play. Also, that we'll get into that next week, obviously, when the schedule releases, because we know we have a pretty easy schedule, but. We need the context. We need when are we playing these teams?
Yeah.
What's the weather implications?
See, I could go through. We already know their opponents. I could sit here and go through all their opponents.
Right.
But I'd really prefer to wait to see how the schedule falls.
Yes.
Because I think we might have better chances winning a particular game at home than somewhere away. And we don't know if they're going to travel. They're going to be on the road for 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yes.
I'm not sure if they're going overseas.
Yep.
So all those.
Sure. Germany.
Yeah, all those things factor
Anywhere,
into it.
Right?
So once we see all that stuff, we'll have a lot more definitive statement on it.
And are you getting better teams later on in the season as well?
Exactly.
That could, this is a war of attrition, let's face it. There's a lot of games. There's more games than there used to be, that's for sure.
And there'll be even more, too. They're going to go to 18 games soon.
For sure. So this is where you have to kind of put it all together. And obviously it's anyone's best guess, but... more to come on that. But all right, I think the Bills, everyone feels,
Yeah, we're still looking up at the Bills.
We're looking up at them, but
exactly.
Hopefully one day soon we're looking down at them.
Yeah, well, that would be very nice.
All right, let's go to the Dolphins, Mike. Give us the breakdown of the Dolphins.
Yeah, we'll go with the Dolphins next. We're just kind of going in order based on how I feel like the division is going to fall. The Dolphins, I think, had a very underwhelming offseason on the whole.
I'm with you.
I mean, they re-signed Bradley Chubb and Liam Eichenberg, their guard. I mean, big whoop, you know. And then the guys that they signed in free agency, Zach Wilson, Nick Westbrook, Akine, Alexander Mattinson, these guys aren't moving any needles.
It's like depth.
They lost Raheem Mostert, who was a beast for them. I know he's long in the tooth, but he still had value.
And when you look at him stacked against Alexander Madison, I'm taking Raheem Mostert all day.
I would too. So that that's their journey, man. I'm not there to.
We love it for them.
Yeah, I'm not there to judge these guys, but they lost Jerem Smith, who was their tight end. They lost Javon Holland, which was a great safety.
Yeah.
And
probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, and then they have Jalen Ramsey on the block right now when they just signed him to an extension last year. So what's going on in Miami right now?
It's a mess.
That's what I want to know. So
and another a subtle one that's not so subtle, I think, is Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, what, almost 40 years old, this guy.
Still productive.
But he's, tried and true. This guy, stops the run. He gets after the court. I mean, this guy applies pressure at, I think, 38 or 39 years old. It's unbelievable.
Well, he's a friggin' monster.
Yeah.
6'8", 340.
So, yeah, I think as far as the additions outside of the draft, which we'll get into now, I think it's pretty lackluster.
Yeah, they didn't move the needle. And speaking about their draft, I am not a fan of their draft at all.
I wouldn't be happy if I was a Dolphins fan.
I don't see the direction that they're going for here. Like, they took Kenneth Grant, the DT out of Michigan, 13th overall. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. But that number is high. Yeah. He would have been available after that. And then these guys really did us a favor. And I've told 100%. You about the next pick that they did, what they did in the second round, is they traded up and leapfrogged us. Because according to reporting, I don't know if that's a valid corroborated thing, but according to reporting, we were targeting this guard here, Jonas 7A. 7A,
Samoan guy, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but I do know he played tackle in college, and I do know that he's a beast. So he's going to be a great pro. Don't get me wrong, but what they gave up for him, because once they moved up, they did us a favor because then we had to pivot and draft Travion Henderson.
Exactly.
So who would you rather have?
Well, 100%, right? It's like, how many guards can you draft between 38 and 64, right?
You move that up that far up for a guard? Come on.
It feels bad. And then, we might get into the, obviously Mike talked about this a lot. The meat and potatoes of this draft was rounds 3 and 4.
Absolutely.
I mean, 5 definitely has. We obviously got Braden Swinson in round 5. But rounds 3 and 4 was value city.
Yeah, they bailed on the meat, like I've told you, giving me my quotes back to me. I call the second, third, and fourth round the meat and potatoes of the draft. So they picked a bunch of guys in the 5th round, which is great, and some of them did fall. I mean, they drafted Jordan Phillips, the DT out of Maryland, in the 5th round. That was good value, but they really missed out selling all out for a guard when I thought they could have added more quality players, because this team needs quantity at this point.
Oh yeah, they
have some quality, all right. They they got the quarterback who's a concussion away from being not in the NFL anymore.
Right.
They got the wide receiver who's a malcontent. They got the other wide receiver, the young kid Waddle, who, he's good. These players are good players, but it just doesn't seem like a cohesive unit right now.
Oh, yeah. Tyreek Hill every other week on X is posting, trade stuff and teasers and about leaving and does he want to be there? Does he not? And he's retweeting stuff or whatever, re-Xing stuff.
Yeah, just all this passive-aggressive nonsense.
And then Jalen Ramsey, on the trade block. So you got, on both sides of the ball, your most important people, in my opinion. I mean, you got Achane, obviously, who's electric. So you got,
but he's not a workhorse.
But he's not a workhorse, and he comes with injury concerns, and you got Jalen Wright, who's definitely not a workhorse. He's way too small. Yeah.
Well, I was going to go easy on the Dolphins. I was going to give them a C, but now that I'm actually speaking it into existence here, I'm giving them a D, because looking at the way the board fell, they gave up a lot of value.
Kid better be an all-pro. He better be,
Exactly. That's a team that could really use influx of talent, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
We were looking at the defense earlier, and nobody's scaring us over there on that end,
There's they re-signed Bradley Chubb, but when it comes down to it, if you don't have Jalen Ramsey, I'm sorry,
They're going to have what? Cam Smith and the kid who Storm Duck.
Storm Duck.
Is that the kid? That's your buddy right there.
I saw Storm Duck and I'm like, is that his real name? Do they have a character? Is he named Storm Duck?
Oh, he's a character. I don't know if he's a character, but he's got a cartoon character name, that's for sure. But yeah, they still have Ramsey as far as the depth chart at the top, but that's going to change. And they have Storm Duck at their other starter as far as their depth chart.
Right, this is unofficial, but
yeah. And then you got Cam Smith, who they drafted in 23 in the second round. He was supposed to flash, and he hasn't really panned out the way that they wanted to. So they're, they signed Artie Burns. That guy's kind of a bum.
Yeah.
They don't have.
There's nothing scaring you on the defense,
no,
right?
It's really not, and especially the way that we built our defense this year to get smaller and faster matches up very well with the team like the Dolphins because
their offense is all about speed.
Their receivers, their running back, all speed. That's their main calling card. So, Miami right now is a finesse team, and we are not trying to be a finesse team at all. We're trying to get it grind in your face, smash mouth all day long, offense and defense.
Dan Campbell football.
So exactly. So I think that, look, I'm going to give us a split on this one too, okay? I'm
with you.
All right, because I know that you might have that sweeping them, but I'm not willing to do that just yet, just because they still do have a functional offense. And I know Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat, but I personally think he's a fantastic offensive mind. I think his play calling and his schemes, he sets people up. He uses leverage against. You have Tyreek Hill motioning all over the place. He's constantly in motion. It's so tough to keep track of him. So you got to keep an eye on it. And he gives us trouble, and he might give us trouble because our corners are longer guys. They're 6'1", right. And this guy's 5'10" if he's lucky. Yep. He's more of a jitterbug kind of guy. So he might outquick us on certain occasions.
Yes.
So that's why I'm not willing to completely discredit them. I know I poo-pooed their off-season maneuvering and their draft.
But they're still the Dolphins, right?
Yes.
The Dolphins always are a thorn in our side.
So it's
they find ways to win against us, steal games from us.
Until we can prove otherwise, I'm gonna give them a. I mean, we always lose a game in Miami. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go 2-0. I'm going to go 2-0 against Miami.
You're doing it.
I'm doing it. I'm ultra confident. I think, the additions on our offensive line, the additions on our defensive line, we're going to win the battle of the trenches against this team. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be convincing.
It'd be a failure if we didn't play that much
I think it's going to be convincing. I think it's going to be a huge statement to show Miami that, hey, you guys may want to blow this thing up. You guys may want to,
They're teetering right. They're right on the cusp right there.
Yep.
If they don't make the playoffs this year, the head coach and the GM Chris Greer, they're both going to be fired.
Yep.
Absolutely, 100%, without any doubt whatsoever. And they just don't look very promising.
No.
I mean, even last year, I was like, if we came out of the gates right, we might be able to do something, but that's wishful thinking, because in retrospect, we never came out of the gates right. Ever. Right. Maybe the Bengals in week 1 last year. That was about it.
Yeah, the products you put out in the beginning is not the product that usually comes out in the end.
Yeah,
they don't build. I haven't seen them build. I've seen them, if anything, be more Jekyll and Hyde than anything. And so most of the pieces are the same, and in some cases they got worse, and not many cases they got better. So,
we're coming to get you, Miami.
We're coming.
We're going to leapfrog you this year. That's my prediction also. I think we're going to have a better record than them and the next team that we're going to talk about as well.
Awesome. Let's get into it.
So we'll round it out of the division with the Jets, talk about some of their guys. They re-signed Jamie Sherwood, who's a fantastic linebacker. I love that guy. They re-signed Alan Lazard, who I think is marginal, personally. It's a matter of opinion. The biggest thing that they did was get Justin Fields, which strikes fear in the heart of no one in this room right now, okay? So, I know he's a fantasy, and Joe's huge into the fantasy numbers.
Right.
And I am too, but he's a fanatic.
Rushing and passing
quarterbacks. For fantasy, go ahead and draft him. Go ahead and draft him high. You're going to get your money's worth out of that. But as far as him winning football games in this division, I don't buy it.
No.
I'm not buying it, and I'm not buying Aaron Glenn as a head coach either.
I wanted to make sure we talked about that too, because Aaron Glenn has been great defensive mind.
His Lions defenses were ranked last in the league, not last year, but a couple seasons before that.
Right. And so, yeah, I think he brings a lot to the table defensively, but we've seen this happen before with coaches with no prior head coaching experience, right? I mean, this is where you have something that's shaky at best on paper, and then you have a coach that just doesn't have any experience. Well, typically that doesn't go too well.
No, you got a rookie coach and a quarterback that is not a classic quarterback. You're going to have to run a gadgety offense. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And you pointed out to me that, like, historically, Justin Fields, he has a good rapport with his number one receiver, whoever that may be.
DJ Moore, whoever,
George Pickens or whoever his go-to. Was he even the go-to for Justin Fields over there?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Well, it doesn't matter.
I know DJ Moore was definitely a favorite of his.
Yeah, absolutely.
Locked in on him.
So he does lock in on guys, which leads me to believe that him and his old chum at Ohio State,
Garrett Wilson,
two teammates together, I think those guys will probably put up decent numbers, but
fantasy-wise, great double dip right there, I'd say.
Yeah.
You're looking to
that's invest. A good, if you want to, if you want to chain those two guys together, absolutely, because I think he's going to get, especially without Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams there, Garrett Wilson's going to be the guy again.
For sure.
He's going to get the majority of the touches, but I'm not, like, shaking in my booties about this or anything like that. No. They got him. They got Josh Reynolds, Josh Palmer. So
dependable guy. I mean, great. Matt Collins, right? All these guys are dependable guys. They're, sure-handed. They can make some big plays here and there, but if you're banking, hanging your hat on Josh Reynolds, then you got other problems.
Yeah, then you're in big trouble. And then as far as their draft, they actually didn't do that bad with their draft at all. Membu at number 7, I think that was going to be a good pick. I think he's a stud right tackle for the next 10 years. I love their...
They got your boy here.
Yeah.
They got your boy.
I love their second-round pick, Mason Taylor.
Look what they did to my boy.
So this guy went number 40. That's high.
It is high.
When we did our mocks through PFF, I had him falling to me in the 3rd round, and I thought that was gold. Right. Because I ended up subsequently getting Kyle Williams in the 4th round.
Right.
So that worked out great for me, but reality is a little different than the mock simulators.
Of course. You put the I think they fell in love with the Ancestry.com. They fell in love with the Zach Thomas heraldry.
He's got the lineage.
Jason Taylor, right?
Absolutely. He's got the lineage. Like I've said, he's only known football his whole entire life.
Right.
He's from football royalty, and you watch the kid's tape, and he's not a great blocker yet, but he has the skills and the tools to be able to do that. Once he grows into himself a little bit more, that's going to be a complete tight end. He's a guy I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm a little jealous that they drafted him. I would have loved to have that guy. So that's a great pick. Azariah Thomas, the corner from Florida State in round 3. I think that's a good pick. I think this guy can come in and start right away. I think he slid a little bit. He might have had injury concerns there, but I like that pick. And then they picked Malachi Moore, the safety out of Alabama, and that guy's a stud. And they got him in the 4th round, so I think that was a good pick too. One pick that we didn't really understand was their first 4th rounder, which was Arian Smith.
Yeah, that was a head scratcher to me. I mean,
he's a receiver out of Georgia.
Yeah. He's a kind of a lid lifter guy, and great as far as his average yards per catch. So yeah, he's a big play guy, but kind of a head scratcher there. Maybe.
Well, he wasn't even. You couldn't even find information on the guy.
It was. There wasn't like you got to check out these highlights. There wasn't much out there on him. And I looked at the wide receiver draft as it was very deep. And,
it was. Guys went after him that were bigger names and probably have more production. So
yeah,
you never know. I mean, people target their guys.
Right.
I was down on our 4th round pick, Craig Woodson, the safety. Yep. But the more I see like his film and the more I discover what kind of player he is going to be a very good fit for us. I just didn't see that at first because I thought he was a strong safety, but he does so much more other things. And this kid might be in the same boat as that. So. Yeah, the Jets. I'm going to give them a B plus. B plus.
I think they're up there. I think you have some sure things for sure, right? You got Membo, you got Taylor, you got the corner there that you said that may have fell, Malachi Moore. So you feel like they added some pieces that maybe weren't immediate needs, but they were players that they were like, listen, this guy is, we have him ranked higher, we have him, being an immediate impact player, and like you said, these guys probably will start right away on this team. What do we think about their defense in general? Because I think that's probably the biggest linchpin to me is, do they have it on defense?
Their defense is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to continue to be good. And Aaron Glenn, he's going to know how to work these guys. They do have just all kinds of weapons on defense. Will McDonald, Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson. Like I said, Jamie Sherwood, Sauce Gardner, don't forget about him.
Yeah, I mean, your backbone is going to be Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, right? Quinnen Williams is
a beast.
Is a monster. I don't know what you would relate him to. He's
He's
Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh.
He's Aaron Donald plus 50 pounds.
I know.
Basically.
It's like Jalen Carter. Is he a Jalen Carter? Jalen Carter's another animal in the middle.
Yep.
And so you have him, and you have Sauce Gardner, and then you drafted the corner, and then a safety. So I mean, you have a lot of good pieces. They're going to be stout. Aaron Glenn is going to, clearly focus on that. I mean, he's a defensive-minded coach, so that's their strength.
I still think, I've been kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt as far as where I think will fare against these teams. These guys, I'm going 2-0. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sweeping this series because this team is not better than our the roster and the coaching staff. We have the better roster and coaching staff. So any given Sunday, I know, so that doesn't mean anything right now. But on paper and with the momentum that each franchise is going in, I think Vrabel's trajectory is much higher than an Aaron Glenn. So I'm going with a sweep, and I don't care where we're playing, when we're playing, what week we're playing.
Yeah.
I think we're beating that team twice. You're making the job easier for Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams, the defensive coordinator, by playing a guy, Justin Fields. There's so many things you can take away from him. If you bracket his number one, and if you
bye Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, bracket his number one. Spy him with the mic with Robert Spillane, and then you have two edge guys that are going to keep contained as opposed to rushing upfield. And we'll see if I'm right or wrong about that, because I always talk about our defense is a upfield, one gap, penetrating. Yep. You can't do that with the Justin Fields. The second you run past him, he's gone.
Yeah, he finds the hole and he's gone.
Even if they're in zone and everybody's looking at you, he's still going to run because the kid can run. And if he has a good head of steam,
but to your point, right? We're going to take away his binky. We're going to take away
Garrett
Wilson. Because guess what? Christian Gonzalez, we're going to have to come up with a good name for him because,
we might not even...
Island, whatever you want to say, but that's what I'm saying.
Like Vrabel says, cat defense. You get that cat, you get that cat.
Yeah.
Let's go to work.
And I don't even know if we need to have him follow him around the field because you got Carlton Davis on the other side. Maybe when he's on Carlton Davis' side, you have someone shading Carlton Davis to give him a little help. But I have full confidence in Gonzalez. I mean, and then now, like you said, you're going to have containment on the quarterback. Well, now guess what? Justin Fields, go through your reads, buddy. And guess what he doesn't do well at?
Good luck.
Does not do well. And when the play breaks down, he can do some amazing things. But I don't feel confident. I'm probably more scared of Breece Hall and Braylon Allen.
Their running game is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
With all those three guys, including Justin Fields, their running game is going to be brilliant.
But I don't feel like we're going to be able to stack the box because I'm confident in our corners. He's going to face 80 to 90% stacked boxes. Good luck. I mean, good luck against that.
Just as long as we spy the guy. That's the only thing.
Right.
That's the thing that drives me nuts when we don't spy, or any team doesn't spy a mobile quarterback.
Right.
You have to have eyes on him. And I know people want to get upfield and make the sack, but with a player like that, I really think you need to contain the edges and just stay on the edge.
Yep.
Make sure just keep him bracketed in, and like you just said, make him make his reads.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of him at all. I think we're going to scheme it up. We're going to be able to shut that guy down. 2-0. 2-0 for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Really couldn't agree more.
So that's what I got for them. So that's it. That's the entire AFC East.
Yeah.
So we're going. So what I'm ending up doing is 1-1, 1-1, 2-0. So I got 4-2.
Yep.
So that's me, and then you got.
I'm 1-1, 2-0, and 2-0. I'm 5-1.
So he's 5-1 in the division.
Boy.
I'm 4-2 in the division. Obviously, the divisional games are much more important than the other games. So if we could end up with either of those outcomes, the chances of us making the playoffs increase exponentially. Even if we finish second behind Buffalo, if our record's good enough, we can still sneak in as a wild card. And that's what I'm banking on. We're sneaking in as a wild card. That's what we're banking on this season.
In Vegas, I haven't checked it recently, but we're basically a coin flip to hit the playoffs. So
is that right?
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I think with this division shaping up the way it is, you got the Dolphins arrow pointing down, you got the Jets arrow pointing down. Heck, I mean the Bills. I was busting some chops on X a little bit, but some of the Bills. I think it was
Joe.
Bills
You're not
Muse.
trolling Bills fans.
Bills Muse put up something about the first game and tell me your predictions.
We apologize, Buffalo Phillies. You guys are great fans. So.
You guys played well. There's some pretty colorful, funny comments, but. Yeah, I mean, I think the window's, it's not closing completely, but, I mean, the pressure's on the Bills. It's not on the Patriots. I mean, obviously, there's a high expectation with Vrabel in this roster, right? If we come in and completely lay an egg, there'll be another thing to
That's going to be a
about.
monumental disaster,
right?
If that actually happens.
And so, but if you're the Bills, who have had the same system, the same coaches, the same, players...
Yeah, and all that stuff has never gotten you out of the AFC Champion. You've never been to a Super Bowl.
And obviously we can talk about, the Chiefs and the refs and these games, these big games that, these blown calls and non-calls and, overcalling and whatever, right? And so there's all the excuses in the world. But at the end of the day, guess what, Josh Allen? Maybe you can't do it with... Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, I mean,
some of these Keon Coleman.
You'd think they'd try to target a star for him. You know what I mean?
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, Pickens, he just went for a third. We didn't talk about that. Pickens went to the Cowboys for a third and some late round swaps or some future swaps. Could they have gotten him, somebody else? I don't know, but yeah, it just feels like if I'm the Bills, I want my star quarterback to have a clear weapon. But...
Absolutely. I'm always going to consider the Bills cursed because of the 4 Super Bowl losses in a row from 89 to 92. I was around for all that.
Yeah.
And that was when the Patriots were terrible and the Bills used to just steamroll. Like, you didn't even want to watch the game because it was going to be such a bad outcome. But a Super Bowl, a team that loses 4 Super Bowls in a row are destined to have that curse on them. Yeah. And I know a lot of Buffalo Bills fans feel the same way. I don't think Buffalo is ever going to win a Super Bowl. I really don't. Not in my lifetime, anyway.
If they don't do it with Josh Allen, who are they doing it with?
Exactly. In the clutchest situations, other guys come up bigger than these guys do. Like, I know Josh Allen is super clutch, but he can't literally do it all by himself, which is what he tries to do. So you run into a buzzsaw like a Baltimore or a Kansas City, and you're going to have to diversify a little bit. We'll see about it. But, yeah, as far as them, I don't know.
One of my good friends, Mike, my other friend Mike, who I go to the Patriots games with him every year. We go to the Jets game. He's an avid Jets fan. I think his dad was in the owner's box when he was growing up.
Okay. So all right, at least he has a valid
He's got a lot
reason.
Of connections, but he's funny because every year I'm like, these roster additions, like this team could be Aaron Rodgers. He's like, dude, they're the Jets. He's like, stop. He's like, don't try to get me excited. They're the Jets. He's like, I'm trying something different this year. I'm going to say they suck. I'm just going to come out and say they're going to suck. He's like, maybe that'll work. I'm like, maybe.
I mean, if you want to reverse jinx it, go right ahead.
Reverse jinx.
So, yeah, I mean, us as fans are always superstitious. So
100%.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, pal.
That's it. That's all it is. All right, guys. So next week, we're going to have a few different things. So this weekend, we got the rookie mini camp from the 9th to the 11th. So expect to see, check out our X accounts, Joe, at Joe LFG Pats Pod and at Mike LFG Pats Pod.
I'm going to try to get those pictures as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because they always post the pictures of them, so I want to see how everybody looks.
Yeah. So we're going to be, checking that out all weekend. Maybe we'll have some footage. Maybe who knows what we'll have by next week. But for next week's episode, we'll have a little bit of information there. The schedule release is next Wednesday.
Big time.
So we're going to record on Wednesday, and we're going to do, the similar thing to what we did here. Maybe not a full deep dive of every team, but certainly go through how we match up against them and what we feel how the schedule will shake out.
What are our win-loss totals going to be?
I know.
That's interesting. I'm not even going to ask them about it. I want them to surprise me next week.
Exactly. We're going to do it so it's live for both of us. And so we're going to have that. like I spoke about before, Foxborough Fellas, 7 p.m. Eastern on the 14th. That same Wednesday, we're going to talk about the AFC East. So you got a little spoiler today about from our perspective. You're going to hear from that next week.
Yeah, we're going to get a bunch of fresh eyes on it, trade different ideas and whatnot. So it should provide some pretty good insight.
And then another thing here is we're working with our sponsor, Rogue Island Kitchen and Bar, that's located in the Arcade in Providence. Arcade is the oldest mall in America. Did you know that, Mike?
I did, yeah.
The oldest mall in America. It looks like, I don't know, it's got these big columns. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of like an old Greek cathedral.
Yeah,
or
it
something
does.
like
It
that,
does.
you know?
But anyways, we're working with Rogue Island on some T-shirts. So you're going to be able to buy a T-shirt with our logo on the front, which we're also working on a new one, and Rogue Island Kitchen and Bar logo on the back. And we're trying to work out a deal where maybe you can buy a T-shirt for a certain amount of money, but also get a Rogue Island gift card with it. So it's cool. We get to promote our podcast, promote Rogue Island. The owner of I'm great friends with, I actually played college football with him at Nichols. He'll actually be going to mini camp with us, training camp. And so, yeah, hopefully we can have those done by camp and we can, share our swag with some fans.
So we will be posted up at training camp. Come check us out.
Definitely.
We'll get all the details as we get into the next episodes in the next coming weeks. In the slow season, we'll give updates on what we're doing. But, yeah, we're going to be at training camp. We think it's going to be a great time. We're going to meet with a bunch of the other podcasters and things and network and trade information. So it's a great community. We've been embraced by the local podcast community.
It's really crazy.
All these people have been just so helpful and excited to work and collaborate and just share ideas. And I didn't know that going in. I knew nothing about podcasts before we started this.
Mike and I both thought it was more cutthroat. It was, why are we going to promote them? We're, they're the competition, and right, and so. But everyone, and so it's nice. They have this kind of throw the ladder back down mentality,
and they all want to work with us.
And they all want to work with us right away. And so it feels good. It does. It feels like you're in a little bit of a family or a little bit of a.
I guess we're not as terrible as our spouses.
Exactly.
I guess they're not as sick of our voices as our spouses are sick of our voices. So it gives us a lot of pride because we've put work into this. And to have that validated by reputable people in the community, we think we're onto something good here. And we want to continue to network with those people and continue to grow the brand and just get it to more ears because we feel like we have good things to say. And Patriots fans, especially the diehards, are always looking for tidbits of information. And we're always going to have that. Joe's always going to come at you with some numbers or stats that you weren't expecting that might change your opinion or make you look at something. And I don't need to toot my own horn, but I tend to have a unique position when I'm doing my scouting and analysis. I always seem to find one thing about a guy that maybe somebody else didn't actually see. So we think we have some value in the information that we're providing, and that's all we want to do. All we want to do is talk about the Patriots, be in the community with Patriots fans, and watch them win football games.
We're here to prove our wives wrong because they would call us masters of useless information, and we want to prove to them that this is actually useful.
So it's no longer useless.
Exactly.
All right. I'm validated.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. This is our 4th episode. We look forward to many more, and follow us on X. We have a Facebook page as well, LFG Pats Pod, and let's go.
And we'll see you next week with that scheduled episode. It's going to be fantastic.
Heck yeah.
Let's go, LFG, baby.